Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining my talk here today around addressing supply chain challenges and using AI to boost your conversions. Our focus today is going to be more around commerce, and again, that's why I'm here. My name is Sanjay Mehta, and I am going to be the presenter today. I am the head of industry for e-commerce at LucidWorks. LucidWorks is very well known for search, both enterprise and commerce related search, and that's again, one of the reasons I'm here to talk about specifically what we see with existing customers. We have some of the largest customers, IR 100 and Fortune 100 customers on our platform, and so we've gained a lot of expertise around how to handle certain aspects of these challenges. So let's talk about the different challenges that been identified, things we hear, right? And again, we've just come off of the holiday, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, right? Time period, which obviously is provided a lot more pressure on supply chains. In particular, what we've heard and seen, observed is logistic, material and labor bottlenecks, right? And lack of visibility and transparency of goods, right? And for example, products that are to be sold, understanding of where they are in the supply chain has also been a challenge, not only for the seller but also consumers. Forecast. This is again, there's so many unknowns that have come along, in particular with these supply chain challenges that we have seen. Forecasting challenges, and then also again, the ability, for organizations to stay resilient and be agile. And I think that's again what we see a lot of research pointing to is really the focus on organizations, going to be working on mitigation plans, or have already instituted mitigation plans to work around these challenges. And an increasing cost has been another ongoing challenge. Now, how does this translate to e-commerce? So again, what does the end consumer end up seeing and suffering from is a lot of out of stock, products that are not available, or seeing no results for specific needs that they may have. They're seeing fulfillment delays, for example, or shipping delays. Uh, what's happening then is, a lot of this ends up being where the customer goes to another competitor, right? And that's where we see conversion drops. Then we have lower orders and revenues. So this basically lack of conversion traits translates into lower orders and revenues, which is obviously a significant business impact. And this also ends up frustrating employees, particularly in the support department. You can imagine how overwhelmed they get with all these inquiries around where's my order, for example. And then finally, the long-term impact is lower brand sentiment, right? And lower NPS scores or net promoter scores, for example. So this is obviously something, most e-commerce sellers want to address, and have been addressing to some shape or form. And we're going to talk about how AI is helping with these particular scenarios. So one area that AI helps is getting ahead of this and helping the business anticipate some of these challenges in advance, right? And we'll get into how that occurs, but basically, preparing the business well in advance, right? Then taking some of that preparedness and predictions that are a result of that, for example, identifying trends, and incorporating that or acting on that in, for example, merchandising, right? And how products are presented, how the experience is presented to the shopper. In addition, in the moment of the shopper, for example, based on their behavior, using AI, machine learning to personalize the experience, particularly what products are shown. This is particularly helpful when the specific product they may have come in from, for example, if they've landed, on a particular product page is not in stock, or they searched for something that's not carried. this is particularly helpful to help aid conversion where we bring in alternative products, for example, based on their intent. And then more importantly, in the long term, uncovering insights and acting accordingly. So identifying trends, there's some exciting areas of machine learning that can be applied here. One area obviously is the resident content out on the web, right? And I think for many years there's been talk about semantic web and semantic and concept extraction, and the reality is we can do that now at scale. And so we see a lot of organizations crawling various channels, sites, community sites, social media, right? Well in advance to start understanding the chatter, if you will, of trends, and pick up sort of concepts and topics that may be indicative of what's coming. This also could include multimedia, right? So there's a wealth of videos and images that are out there now. And for example, for customers, organizations selling visual products such as apparel, we may be able to identify trends and looks and styles, for example, using computer vision. Finally, there's a lot of tools out there, for example, SEO tools, the search engines themselves, marketplaces, to understand kind of what the competitive landscape is. What are other sellers positioning? How are they promoting it? What are the engines retrieving, right, for given concepts? And obviously, we've always had more of the analytics that you already have from on-site, your users' behaviors, their browse, their actions, any omni-channel analytics like purchase history across touch points. And where we are seeing many organizations trying to expand is into the multidimensional supplier analytics, manufacturing analytics, as more of these systems become IoT enabled, they become connected, where we can get that visibility as more suppliers too are also willing to share more of their internal process data back to their buyers. Predictive merchandising is a big area where now the machine, I would consider this an actionable outcome here, where the machine learning kind of powers what is shown and the position it's shown. And this is based on the particular individual shopper's intent in real time, using predictive models to gather their intent, but also looking at the aggregate, right? The entire population of shoppers now and current and past interactions. We might also incorporate supply chain data such as forecasts and inventory planning and optimization into the decisions of how products are shown, particularly when we have context, right? So location, many of you may already offer products by filter by location, but there might be underlying supply chain issues or inventory issues at that location where maybe AI can help make decisions on sourcing inventory from other locations and presenting the customer with other fulfillment options that provide less strain on the business. And what we see mostly, if you think about a search result or a category page, is the presentation or position of products based on those underlying supply chain metrics, in addition to aligning it with what the shopper's intent is. Okay, many models support the ability to incorporate your own targets, where you may want to move excess inventory, or you might want to promote certain high demand inventory to loyal customers or high value customers, and not necessarily put it at risk to transient low propensity shoppers, for example, coming from search engines that have never been to your site. Another use case is with predicted intent and personalizing the experience, right? And so building on what we've mentioned here, where we're showing sort of the results in a certain way, honoring, supply chain constraints, for example, as well. Here, we might employ additional technologies such as semantic vector search, which does a great job of uncovering alternative products. For example, competitor product names are used. Well, we might show something that is a good alternative that we might particularly carry, or products that are out of stock, but other users have selected as alternatives, or products where you don't even carry something, but you may want to understand the user goal and show something according to the goal versus the specific product keyword. Neural network based recommenders also take additional layers into extent here, where we're talking about the user behavior parameters, their affinities, as well as the product affinity, product attributes and characteristics, and coming up with very relevant suggestions at that level versus just product item SKU level types of recommendations that have traditionally been used. Knowledge graphs are a great tool to also uncover the user's goal, particular concepts, right? Here we've got someone looking for an evening gown that may be related to a night out, correct? So we may also then use that night out to issue additional queries or surface additional items related to that concept versus just an evening gown. Affinity modeling is very important as well, where we look at how users are interacting through their click stream, what they're looking at, the content, the queries, and using those affinity, they may have affinity weights, if you will, that they might have to specific attributes of products. So we're getting away from just that specific product ID that's going to traditionally been used, but looking at the actual underlying characteristics of the product and suggesting accordingly. This helps then, for example, definitely when you don't have the product or we have a supply chain issue for a particular product, then, we're showing some intelligent alternatives that drive conversion. Also, using propensity modeling, we might present the optimal offer to encourage a customer to choose a different product, but also encourage them to, if they're hesitant to purchase, right, with maybe a slight discount or a fulfillment discount. So there's a bunch of things AI can help decide. Finally, if surfacing content that we see is very important. Again, using this intent to drive what content you show the user to educate them more on their purchase, potentially to grow the purchase, but also narrow their focus more, not just on a specific product, but also kind of their general need and other products that might fulfill that. This also helps with driving the long tail, right? So you may have a large assortment, but folks are only looking at the most popular products. There might be a lot of margin that lost and a conversion opportunity there, where intent does do a great job of surfacing that long tail. And kind of quickly a little bit on how this works, right? You might feed all your product data in the form of a PIM and content back into the engine for machine learning. There's a lot of techniques out there for entity extraction to understand what the characteristics and features of product shoppers are interested in. Concept extraction, right, looks at queries, understand ultimate use cases, for example, how they're going to use that product. Clickstream behavior also does a great job, even from the minute they land on the site. Where did they land? That means they had some intent, from a search engine, for example. That's where it all starts. And then as their interactions occur, whether it's browse, navigation, product views, the underlying attributes of that product, underlying attributes of those categories should be incorporated to give us a better sense of what that shopper is interested in beyond just a product ID, for example. And then taking the context is very important, right? So the location, what's the underlying conditions of that location, the season, especially for those of you who sell across many geographies or regions. And then all of these can be encoded into vectors, for example, for both the use of semantic vector search as shown before, neural network-based approaches such as in recommendations and other types of personalization models. Finally, we have all this great data that is being derived from these experiences, e-commerce, and some of the what we would call reinforcement learning that occurs in training data that comes from the end users, which is generally very significant, more significant than you can source internally from employees, for example. So this is, some outcomes I wanted to just call out when we think about e-commerce journeys. From the purchase and shipping details, we might feed those insights into inventory plans, warehouse plans, your overall supply chain plans, not only in the sort of current season, but also subsequent seasons. Product interactions reveal product insights. For example, what materials are in the products, what ingredients, what characteristics, right? This goes into your product planning and raw materials. Again, as we think of down the supply chain, increasing visibility of raw materials that are being incorporated into the manufacturing of your product and supply chain. This is obviously very valuable as we think about more multidimensional analytic models and insights. Browse and navigation gives you an idea of more your assortment and your catalog insights, right? Which is, what is this assortment? How effective is this assortment? How's my taxonomy? How's the performance of my taxonomy? How are folks arriving and navigating my catalog? This also is very useful for enriching your existing data. Traffic insights, for example, where customers are coming from, what campaigns are they responding to, where are they leaving off? For example, if you can get some of that data, it's very valuable, but also then as incorporated into demand planning, that also is an element of supply planning, right? And so, where are my customers coming from, including additional context. This also helps with the marketing and campaign planning. And again, helping to throttle, for example, or mitigate or avoid supply issues that might occur, right, when we have this type of insight. Finally, the interactions customers may have on price and discounts and promotions on your site will also gain into financial insights such as margin, but also price elasticity, again, which can be used to slow down demand, as we all know, or increase demand for oversupply when that unfortunately occurs. Finally, the support. Many of you have support, chatbots, self-service. There's a wealth of insights that can be gained from there, particularly around diagnosing either fulfillment issues if you're doing drop shipping, but also supplier diagnostics for packaging, warehousing, contributing to your overall knowledge base, as well as reverse logistics, so understanding returns and why they're occurring. So there's wealth, and again, all this feeds back into the AI and helps increase conversions, helps drive revenue, and hopefully you guys found this as a valuable talk on how to get around some of these supply chain issues, which we really don't see going away for anytime soon. And with that, we're going to leave some time for some questions. Thank you.